In 1876, in the industrial town of Hull, England, the Victorian understanding of human combustion was challenged by an event that defied medical explanation. What happened to Mary Harlow, age 23, would force the Royal College of Physicians to create a sealed file that remained classified for 97 years. This is the story documented in the East Riding Medical Archives, witnessed by 42 people, hidden until 1973. A story about a woman whose body temperature reached levels incompatible with life, yet she remained conscious, speaking, and impossibly aware of her own internal destruction. Mary Elizabeth Harlow was born in 1853 to a family of textile workers in Hull's factory district. Her mother had died, bringing her younger brother Thomas into the world when Mary was 15, leaving her to raise the boy while their father worked 16-hour shifts at the rope factory. Those who knew Mary described her as uncommonly gentle, with a habit of singing hymns while mending clothes by candlelight after Thomas had fallen asleep. She possessed what her neighbors called steady hands. She worked as a seamstress in Mrs. Adelaide Cooper's dress shop on Whitefriar Gate, earning enough to keep Thomas in school. Her father had remarried in 1875, bringing some relief to Mary's responsibilities, though she remained devoted to her brother's education. She attended St. Mary's Church every Sunday, where Reverend William Blackwood noted her quiet faith and generous spirit in his parish records. Mary had recently become engaged to Samuel Fletcher, a clerk at the shipping office, who described her as having eyes that held kindness even when speaking of hardship. Their wedding was planned for September 1876. She would never wear the dress she had begun sewing. On the morning of August 14, 1876, Mary arrived at Mrs. Cooper's shop at precisely 7 o'clock, as she had every weekday for 3 years. The day was unremarkably warm, with temperatures recorded at 72 degrees by the Hull Observatory. She carried her usual basket containing bread and cheese for lunch, along with the blue silk fabric she had been embroidering for her wedding dress. Mrs. Cooper later recalled that Mary had seemed perhaps quieter than usual, but not unwell. She worked steadily through the morning, finishing alterations on 2 dresses and beginning work on a christening gown. At 10:30, Mary had asked for a glass of water, mentioning that she felt peculiarly warm. Mrs. Cooper had thought nothing of it. The shop was always stuffy in summer. At 11:47, Mary stood abruptly from her sewing table and said, "Something is burning." Mrs. Cooper immediately checked the shop's coal stove, but it was barely warm. The smell Mary described, acrid like scorched hair and something chemical, seemed to have no source. Within moments, Mary's face flushed deep crimson. She pulled at her collar, gasping. "It's inside me," she said, her voice rising. "The heat is inside me." Mrs. Cooper touched Mary's forehead and jerked her hand back. She was hot as a kettle just off the boil, Mrs. Cooper testified later. "I thought she had a terrible fever." But Mary's skin had gone beyond feverish. It radiated heat that could be felt from 2 feet away. Her breathing became rapid and shallow. Elizabeth Morton, a customer in the shop, ran to fetch Dr. James Crowther, whose surgery was 3 doors down. When he arrived at 11:53, he found Mary sitting in a chair, trembling violently despite the heat emanating from her body. Her eyes had taken on an unusual brightness. The pupils contracted to pinpoints. "I'm burning," Mary whispered. "Can't you see? I'm burning from within." Dr. Crowther placed his hand on her wrist to check her pulse and immediately withdrew it. Her skin temperature was far beyond anything I had encountered in 20 years of practice, he wrote in his medical journal that evening. I estimated it at 115 degrees, perhaps higher. Yet she remained conscious and articulate, an impossibility given such hyperthermia. Mary's dress began to smoke at the seams. Witnesses reported seeing steam rising from her collar and cuffs. Mrs. Cooper brought water, but when it touched Mary's skin, it hissed and evaporated almost instantly. The temperature in the small shop climbed noticeably. Dr. Crowther called for cold compresses, but they dried and warmed within seconds of contact with Mary's body. I can feel my blood boiling, Mary said clearly. I can feel each vein. Doctor, why am I still alive? Dr. James Crowther, educated at Edinburgh Medical School and a Fellow of the Royal College of Surgeons, documented his observations with scientific precision. Miss Harlow's condition violated every principle of human physiology I had been taught, he wrote. At such temperatures, protein denatures, blood coagulates, and consciousness should be impossible. Yet she spoke rationally, described her symptoms with clarity, and remained aware of her surroundings. I could not explain what I was witnessing. Crowther, Medical Journal, August 14th, 1876. Samuel Fletcher arrived at noon, having been summoned from his office. His testimony, given to the Hull coroner's office 3 days later, provides the emotional perspective. I held her hand for as long as I could bear the heat. She looked at me with perfect recognition and said, "Samuel, I am seeing things I should not see." When I asked what she meant, she said, "I can see the shape of my own heart beating. I can see the fire in my lungs." Her words were calm, but her eyes held terror I shall never forget. Thomas Whitby, a Methodist minister, known for his skepticism of supernatural claims, was passing by when he heard the commotion. I entered expecting hysteria or theatrical display, he testified. Instead, I found a young woman radiating heat so intense it distorted the air around her as one sees above a summer road. I placed my Bible on the table beside her. Within 2 minutes, its leather cover had dried and cracked. I am a man of science as well as faith. What I witnessed defied both. Whitby, Testimony to Hull Medical Board, August 16th, 1876. Dr. Crowther attempted a systematic examination, despite the extraordinary circumstances. He could not use a mercury thermometer. When placed under Mary's tongue, the mercury expanded beyond the instrument's capacity and shattered the glass. He estimated her core temperature at 120 degrees Fahrenheit, based on the speed at which water evaporated from her skin. Her pulse was rapid but regular, 140 beats per minute. Her breathing, though labored, showed no signs of the respiratory failure that should accompany such hyperthermia. Most disturbing was her mental clarity. Dr. Crowther conducted a series of questions to assess her cognitive function, and she answered each correctly. The date, the name of the Queen, mathematical problems, recitation of Scripture. Then Mary said something that would prove crucial to the investigation. "Dr. Crowther, your wife Margaret is with child. She does not yet know. It is a girl, and she will have your mother's name, Catherine." Dr. Crowther went pale. His wife had not yet missed her monthly courses. He had told no one of his mother's name, Catherine, who had died when he was an infant. "How could you possibly know this?" he demanded. "I can see it," Mary replied. "I can see many things now. The heat has opened something inside me. I can see through walls, through skin, through time itself. Your daughter will be born on April 3rd, 1877, She will have a birthmark on her left shoulder blade, shaped like a crescent moon. Mrs. Cooper and the other witnesses heard this exchange. Dr. Crowther documented it immediately in his notes, including the specific date and description of the birthmark. He would later confirm that his wife was indeed pregnant, and on April 3, 1877, Catherine Margaret Crowther was born with the exact birthmark Mary had described. Birth Registry, Hull Parish Records, 1877. I am trained to observe and document, Dr. Crowther wrote. I cannot explain the source of Miss Harlow's knowledge, but I can attest to its accuracy. She knew things that were impossible to know through any natural means. The heat consuming her body had somehow granted her a vision that penetrated the ordinary boundaries of perception. Word spread through Hull's narrow streets with remarkable speed. By 2 o'clock, a crowd of over 60 people had gathered outside Mrs. Cooper's shop. Some came to witness the miracle, others to prove it false. A local newspaper reporter, Daniel Hughes of the Hull Packet, arrived with a photographer, though the heat prevented them from getting close enough for a clear image. The vicar of St. Mary's, Reverend Blackwood, attempted to perform prayers for healing, but the heat drove him back. The town's mayor, concerned about public disorder, sent for additional medical authorities. The situation was escalating beyond local control. At 3 o'clock, Dr. Crowther made a decision that would provide the most compelling evidence of Mary's impossible condition. He asked her to describe something she could not possibly see: the contents of his locked medical bag, which sat in his surgery 3 doors away. Mary closed her eyes. "You have 17 instruments," she said slowly. "A brass stethoscope with your initials engraved on the bell, 3 scalpels of different sizes, a bottle of laudanum half empty, a leather journal with a brown cover, your medical notes, and a letter from your brother in India dated July 28th, unopened, because you fear the news it contains about your father's health." Dr. Crowther sent Thomas Whitby to retrieve the bag and verify each item. The minister returned 15 minutes later with a written inventory. Every item matched Mary's description exactly, including the unopened letter dated July 28th. The crowd witnessed Whitby's confirmation, but Mary continued. "There is something else, doctor. Beneath the false bottom of your bag, which you installed yourself, a daguerreotype of a woman who is not your wife. Her name is inscribed on the back, Eleanor, 1869. The crowd fell silent. Dr. Crowther's face drained of color. He had told no one about Eleanor Marsh, to whom he had been engaged before meeting his wife. She had died of consumption in 1870. He kept her photograph hidden, a private memorial to a love he had lost. When the bag was examined, the false bottom was discovered exactly as Mary described. The daguerreotype was found with the inscription matching her words precisely. Physical evidence preserved in Crowther family archives. "I felt exposed," Dr. Crowther wrote that night. "Not merely observed, but seen through. My body, my possessions, my memories, all transparent to her burning vision. If this was deception, it was accomplished by means beyond any conjurer's art. I began to accept that something genuinely impossible was occurring." Mary's temperature continued to climb. By 4 o'clock, witnesses reported the papers left near her chair began to brown and curl at the edges. The wooden table she leaned against showed scorch marks. Yet she remained conscious, her mind sharp even as her body should have been shutting down in thermal shock. At 6 o'clock, Dr. Harrison Blackwell arrived from London. A physician attached to Guy's Hospital and a specialist in rare medical phenomena, He had been summoned by telegraph that afternoon. Dr. Blackwell had investigated cases of hysterical paralysis, stigmata, and other conditions at the boundary of medicine and mystery. He arrived as a skeptic, carrying instruments to expose what he assumed would be an elaborate fraud. His initial examination lasted 45 minutes. He used a specialized thermometer designed for industrial furnaces, capable of measuring temperatures up to 200 degrees. Held 6 inches from Mary's forehead, it registered 137 degrees Fahrenheit. "Impossible," he muttered, checking the instrument twice. Dr. Blackwell then discovered something that elevated the case from medical curiosity to scientific crisis. Using a magnifying lens, he examined Mary's eyes and saw that the blood vessels in her sclera were not merely dilated. They were glowing faintly, as if lit from within. "I observed a luminescence in the capillaries of her eyes," he documented, "a soft orange light, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat." "I have never encountered such a phenomenon in living tissue," Blackwell, report to Royal College of Physicians, August 20th, 1876. He proposed a theory that shocked the assembled witnesses. Mary's body was undergoing a form of spontaneous internal combustion. But unlike the cases documented in medical literature, the fire was controlled, contained within her vascular system. Her blood itself appeared to be burning at a temperature that should kill her instantly, yet her consciousness remained intact. "We are witnessing something that challenges our understanding of human physiology," Dr. Blackwell announced. "Miss Harlow's body temperature exceeds the threshold of survival, yet she lives. She demonstrates cognitive abilities that suggest her consciousness has been enhanced rather than destroyed by this condition. I cannot explain it. I can only document it and admit that current medical science has no framework for what is occurring before us." As evening approached, Mary's revelations became more disturbing and more specific. She began speaking about events that had not yet occurred, describing them with the same certainty she had shown when revealing Dr. Crowther's secrets. "There will be a fire at the rope factory tomorrow at dawn," she said clearly. "The Eastern Storage Building. A lantern will fall from a hook at 6:42 in the morning. 3 men will be injured: Robert Hayes, William Drummond, and John Ashton. None will die, but Hayes will lose the use of his left hand." Samuel Fletcher wrote down her exact words, including the time and names. 23 witnesses heard this prediction, including Dr. Blackwell, who noted it in his report with the observation: "Miss Harlow spoke with absolute conviction, as if describing events she had already witnessed." She turned to Mrs. Cooper. "Adelaide, your sister in York, Catherine, she gave birth this afternoon at 4 o'clock. A boy. He came early and she is frightened. But both will survive. She has named him William, after your father." Mrs. Cooper had not known her sister was near her time. The next day a telegram arrived, confirming that Catherine Cooper had indeed given birth to a boy named William at 4 o'clock on August 14th, 3 hours before Mary had announced it. Telegraph Records, York Post Office, August 15th, 1876. Mary's predictions continued through the evening. She described a ship that would arrive in Hull's harbor on August 17th, carrying news of a cholera outbreak in Hamburg. She predicted rain would begin at 3 o'clock the following afternoon and continue for 6 hours. She told Reverend Blackwood that his nephew in London had been promoted to clerk at the Treasury. Each prediction would prove accurate. By 9 o'clock that evening, word had reached the offices of the Home Secretary in London. The combination of impossible medical phenomena and accurate predictions of future events triggered official concern. At midnight, 2 representatives from the Medical Research Council arrived, accompanied by a clerk from the Home Office named Edmund Sterling. Sterling's mandate was clear: assess whether Miss Harlow posed a threat to public safety and determine if the phenomenon could be explained or controlled. He conducted interviews with all primary witnesses, examined Dr. Blackwell's notes, and observed Mary directly for 2 hours. His official report, declassified in 1973, contains remarkable admissions. Miss Harlow's condition defies rational explanation. Her body temperature remains at levels incompatible with life, yet she demonstrates no signs of organ failure or cognitive impairment. Her predictive statements, verified by multiple witnesses, suggest access to information through means unknown to current science. I recommend immediate medical supervision and restriction of public access. Sterling. Report to Home Office, August 15, 1876. The government attempted to move Mary to a secure medical facility in London, but Dr. Crowther and Dr. Blackwell argued that transportation in her condition could be fatal. A compromise was reached. Mary would remain in Hull under constant medical observation, but all information about her case would be classified under the Official Secrets Act. Newspapers were instructed to print no further details. The photographer's plates were confiscated. The cover-up had begun, but Mary's ordeal was far from over. On the morning of August 16th at precisely 6:42, a lantern fell at the rope factory's eastern storage building. The fire that followed injured exactly 3 men: Robert Hayes, William Drummond, and John Ashton. Hayes lost the use of his left hand. Mary had predicted it to the minute, 18 hours before it occurred. But as her predictions proved accurate, her physical condition deteriorated catastrophically. By noon on August 16th, her skin had taken on a reddish glow, visible even in daylight. The heat radiating from her body had increased to the point where no one could approach within 5 feet. Dr. Blackwell recorded her surface temperature at 153 degrees. "I am dying," Mary said calmly to Samuel. "I can see it. The fire is consuming me from within. It will reach my heart at sunset." Samuel knelt as close as he could bear, tears streaming down his face. "Fight it, Mary. Please fight it." "I cannot fight what I've become," she replied. "But Samuel, I need you to know. This was not random. I was chosen for this. I can see the pattern now. There are others like me scattered through time. We burn so that others may see. We are messages written in flesh and flame." At 7:33 that evening, as the sun touched the horizon, Mary Harlow's temperature spiked to an estimated 170 degrees. Witnesses reported that her skin glowed orange-red, like heated iron. She screamed once, the only sound of pain she had made in 32 hours. Then, abruptly, the heat began to dissipate. Within 15 minutes, her temperature had dropped to 104 degrees. Within an hour, it reached 99 degrees. The glow faded from her skin and eyes. She collapsed into unconsciousness, her body finally succumbing to the exhaustion it should have experienced days before. She had survived, but she had been transformed. Mary remained unconscious for 3 days. When she woke on August the 19th, her temperature was normal, 98.6 degrees exactly. The heat that had consumed her had vanished completely, leaving no burns, no tissue damage, no evidence of the impossible temperatures her body had endured. Dr. Blackwell conducted extensive examinations. Her heart, lungs, kidneys, all organs functioned normally. Her blood, examined under microscope, showed no abnormalities. It was as if the burning had never occurred, except for one detail. Her eyes retained a faint golden tint in certain light, visible only to those who looked closely. "I cannot explain what occurred," Dr. Blackwell wrote in his final report. "Miss Harlow's body achieved temperatures that should have resulted in immediate death, yet she survived with no permanent damage. Her predictive abilities during the episode were documented by dozens of witnesses and proved accurate in every instance. I can only conclude that we witnessed a phenomenon that exists outside our current scientific understanding. The human body, under conditions we cannot yet identify, may be capable of states that violate known physical laws." Blackwell, Final Report to Royal College of Physicians, September 1st, 1876. Mary's prophetic vision had vanished with the heat. She could no longer see through walls or predict the future. She remembered everything that had happened, but could not explain the source of her abilities. "It was as if I had been granted sight beyond sight," she told Dr. Crowther. "And then it was taken away, leaving me only with the memory of what I had seen." The official explanation, released to the limited press coverage allowed, attributed her condition to an acute, febrile episode of unknown origin, now resolved. The truth remained sealed in government files. In 1973, when the Home Office files were declassified under the 30-year rule, researchers at Cambridge University examined the case of Mary Harlow with modern scientific tools. Dr. Patricia Whitmore, a specialist in thermodynamics and human physiology, analyzed the historical documents and made a startling discovery. The temperatures documented exceed what we now know as the upper limit of protein stability, Dr. Whitmore wrote in the Journal of Medical History. At 150 degrees Fahrenheit, the proteins that make up human tissue begin irreversible denaturation. Yet multiple credible witnesses, including trained physicians, documented Miss Harlow's survival at temperatures approaching 170 degrees. If accurate, this suggests a mechanism of cellular protection we have not yet discovered. Whitmore, Journal of Medical History, 1974. Modern analysis of Dr. Crowther's preserved medical journals, including his thermometer readings and detailed observations, confirmed the accuracy of his documentation. His personal papers, donated to the Hull Medical Archives in 1923, contained additional evidence. The daguerreotype Mary had described, still hidden in the false bottom of his medical bag, exactly as she had seen it. Most remarkably, Catherine Crowther's birth certificate, located in parish records, confirmed Mary's prediction. Born April 3, 1877, with a crescent-shaped birthmark on her left shoulder blade, documented in the midwife's notes. The historical evidence validates that something extraordinary occurred, Dr. Whitmore concluded. Whether we call it spontaneous human combustion, psychic vision, or an unknown medical phenomenon, the documentation proves it was real. Mary Harlow's case was not unique in Victorian medical literature. In 1853, the Countess Cornelia de Bondi of Cesena, Italy, was found reduced to ash except for her legs, suggesting internal combustion. In 1885, a Mrs. Patrick Rooney of Dublin survived a similar episode of extreme internal heat, documented by Dr. Michael O'Brien of Trinity College. In 1891, Thomas Hamilton of Aberdeen reported spontaneous elevation of body temperature to 140 degrees, surviving 3 days before the condition resolved. These cases, scattered across decades and countries, suggest a rare but recurring phenomenon. Modern researchers have proposed theories ranging from mitochondrial hyperactivity to quantum effects in cellular metabolism, but no explanation has been definitively proven. Mary's case remains the best documented example, with the most credible witnesses and the most extensive medical records. Mary Harlow married Samuel Fletcher in October 1876, 2 months after her ordeal. They had 4 children and lived quietly in Hull until Samuel's death in 1903. Mary worked as a midwife, her gentle manner and steady hands serving her community for over 30 years. She rarely spoke of August 1876, but her daughter Elizabeth recorded one conversation. In her diary, "Mother told me tonight about the burning," Elizabeth wrote in 1898. She said it felt like being touched by God and the devil simultaneously. She said she saw the whole universe laid bare, past, present, and future woven together like threads in cloth. She said the worst part was not the pain, but returning to ordinary sight afterward, knowing what existed beyond the veil but being unable to reach it again. Elizabeth Fletcher Morrison, Personal Diary, 1898. Mary Harlow died peacefully in her sleep on January 3, 1924, at age 70. Her obituary in the Hull Daily Mail made no mention of the events of 1876, but those who had witnessed her burning never forgot. Dr. Crowther kept her case file until his death, marking it the most extraordinary medical phenomenon I ever encountered. Mary Harlow's story forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the limits of human consciousness and the boundaries of physical law. If a woman could burn at temperatures that should kill her, yet remain aware and even gain impossible knowledge, what does that suggest about the relationship between mind and body, between consciousness and the physical world? If this story has challenged your assumptions about what is possible, subscribe to our channel for more documented cases from history's medical archives. Stories of real people who experienced the impossible and forced science to expand its understanding of human potential. Some mysteries remain unsolved, but they are no less real